A friend set me up on a date, and the guy who showed up turned out to be my ex-boyfriend. My friend hyped him up, saying he was exceptional in every way and that his romantic history was incredibly simple. Just one past relationship, and he was the one who got dumped. That much I could verify, considering I was the one who dumped him. When it was just the two of us left, I finally broke the ice and extended my hand. Nathan, it's been a while. He countered with a question of his own. Why did you leave me back then? Maybe I was the problem, I replied. See? He clearly didn't buy it. He ignored my outstretched hand and simply slid the menu across the table. What do you want to drink? We don't have to, do we? Aren't you in a rush? I knew his work schedule was brutal, so bumping into him on this date was a complete shock. The usual, then. He signaled the waiter. 1 iced latte and 1 iced Americano. I quickly stopped the waiter. Could you make that latte hot and sugar-free, please? Thanks. Nathan shot me a look, and I sheepishly explained. I'm getting older. I have to start watching my health. He didn't press the issue. We sat at opposite ends of the table, nursing our coffees like two strangers who knew each other a little too well. But honestly, it felt like there was more than just a table separating us. It felt like a massive chasm, sometimes close, sometimes impossibly far, but completely uncrossable. Out of nowhere, he broke the silence. Nancy, how have you been this past year? It wasn't an interrogation, nor was there any real emotion behind it. Same old, same old. You? I went with the standard deflection, tossing the question right back at him. In 2 months, I'll be relocating overseas for work. Really? I was genuinely happy for him. I'd seen how hard he'd worked over the years. Will you be gone for a long time? A year, maybe 2. The way he looked at me, though, made me want to look away. Then he added something completely out of left field. I don't have to go, actually. I stirred my coffee, closing my eyes for a brief second to compose myself. Congratulations. You've worked so hard for this, so don't pass up the opportunity. Things soured after that. Once I offered my congratulations, he left without even finishing his coffee. I stared at what was left in my cup, suddenly losing my appetite. When I walked out of the cafe, I saw him standing outside, lighting a cigarette. He let it burn between his fingers without taking a drag. I watched his lips move. Why did you leave me back then? I gave him a small smile. Maybe I was the problem. I watched him walk away and reached up to touch my hair. A heavy sigh escaped me. Another handful had fallen out. I was still dead to the world when my younger brother yanked the blankets off me. My mom had spoiled him rotten since he was a kid, so now he didn't even bother knocking before barging into my room. I sprang out of bed, threw the blanket over his head when he wasn't looking, pinned him down, and gave him a good beating. Hearing the commotion, my mom rushed in. Nancy, what on earth are you doing? Are you picking on your brother again? Caleb poked his head out from under the covers. Mom, you have to help me. She's beating me up. You don't even know how to knock. You just ripped my covers off. Do I not get any privacy? Let me tell you, you absolutely deserve that. We bickered for a good while before finally calling a truce, mostly because Mom had made an amazing breakfast. Caleb and I had a staring contest over the last piece of bacon. We both had our forks stabbed into it, neither willing to back down. The standoff ended when Mom whacked Caleb on the back of the head. What are you fighting for? Let your sister have it. Exactly. You stole my toys when we were kids, and now you're trying to steal my breakfast, I gloated, happily munching on the bacon. My mom's mouth twitched, clearly feeling a bit bad for Caleb. Oh please. You were the one stealing Caleb's toys growing up. He just followed you around like a little shadow, getting into trouble. Mom, we both yelled at the same time. One of us didn't want to be exposed, and the other was terrified of it. I packed my things, said I was heading to work, and went straight to the hospital. I talked to the doctor, who told me that if I stuck strictly to the treatment plan, I had at least a year left. That was great news. I was going to live for quite a while longer. When my mom asked how the date went, I told her the guy thought I was average looking, had a dead-end job, was too old, and was overly picky, so I turned him down. She marched out of the kitchen, waving a rolling pin at me. I was wondering why every single one of your dates fell apart. You haven't been taking this seriously at all, have you? Somehow she had managed to get flour all over her face, which made her look pretty ridiculous. I'm telling the truth. I cried, dodging her swings. She was furious. He told me himself that he really liked you and wanted to keep seeing you. How does that translate to you turning him down? Honestly, Nathan had to be out of his mind. Back when I broke up with him, I made sure it was a spectacular disaster. Knowing how deeply he loved me, I found another guy to get in bed with, making sure Nathan caught us red-handed. With red, tear-filled eyes, he asked me why. I simply told him I didn't love him anymore. And after all that, he was still really liked me? Was he pleased that I was getting older and had a few new wrinkles around my eyes? Or, my mind instantly went into dramatic thriller mode. Was he out for revenge? Did he go off and learn some secret assassin skills to take me out? I stared at the man sitting across from me. He looked incredibly handsome in a suit. Frankly, I preferred him out of the suit, wearing absolutely nothing at all. I was pulled out of my daze when he pushed the menu toward me. I quickly looked away as his voice brought me back to reality. What do you want to eat? I didn't even glance at it. Since Mr. Reynolds is so successful now, how about I only order the expensive stuff? He didn't argue. He just took the menu back and called the waiter over. Once we ordered, I decided to lay my cards on the table. What is your problem? Why did you tell my mom you liked me? We're adults here, we could have just gone through the motions. You could have just blamed the whole thing on me, told her I was awful. I paused, then added, did my mom make that up? I figured there was no way you'd actually. She didn't, he interrupted. I said it. You're really still hung up on me? I suddenly felt incredibly exhausted. Listen to me, I stopped having feelings for you a long time ago. You're just holding on to a bruised ego. Ugh. Even with his eyebrows knit together in a deep frown, Nathan was gorgeous. I wanted nothing more than to pull him into my arms. I tried to sidestep the awkwardness by changing tactics. If you're really that desperate to date someone, I can set you up. He paused, his wine glass hovering in the air, but he didn't say no. All right. My hand trembled against my cup. When you're a kid, adults tell you a kaleidoscope holds a beautiful world inside. When you grow up, they tell you it's just broken bits of colored glass. I felt like all the romance inside me had shattered into pieces that could never be put back together. I actually did find a match for Nathan. She was a stunning girl with a sweet smile and a cute little dimple on one side. Best of all, she'd been crushing on him for ages. I realized then that he wasn't the one with the bruised ego, I was. It broke my heart, but I figured a guy as great as him deserved a good woman by his side forever, right? I texted him her details, but he shut it down immediately. When I pushed the issue, he blocked me. Wow. A year apart, and suddenly he had a spine. He secretly unblocked and added me back. So I blocked him. Huh. Immature. My mom was tearing into Caleb at home. I stood off to the side, thoroughly enjoying the show, grabbing a handful of potato chips for good measure. The little brat had been blowing off his college classes to play video games and ended up failing several of his finals. Mom was absolutely livid. I quickly stepped in to play peacemaker. Mom, take a breather. Don't work yourself up. Stress is bad for a woman's health. Then I grabbed a rolling pin from the kitchen and handed it to her. Here, Mom. Just use this. My brother gritted his teeth in fury. Nancy, you little snitch. I just stood there, relishing the chaos, and grabbed another huge handful of chips. Caleb decided to throw me under the bus. Nancy, don't think you're off the hook. Mom, guess what? That amazing guy she went on a date with? She blocked his number. A few minutes later, Caleb and I were both kicked out of the house, squatting together on the front steps. I shared some of my chips with him. Spill it. Who told you I blocked him? Caleb munched on the chips, looking incredibly punchable. Look, if you ask me, you should just go with it. A guy that good-looking is a once-in-a-lifetime catch. If you let him go, you'll never find someone like him again. Plus, I hear he's doing really well for himself. He added with a smug grin. He clearly just as terrible taste in women. I smacked him. You're a kid. You don't know anything. Go with it. I'd gone with it for 3 whole years. Caleb dragged me out to get some food near the house. I didn't even bother changing out of my ridiculously thick, fluffy pajamas. And there, sitting across from us, was Nathan, sharp in a tailored suit. I glared at Caleb. Caleb glared at Nathan, and Nathan stared right back at me. I had no choice but to yell toward the counter. Order 37. Hold the spice, extra sauce. Nathan held his hand out toward me. I grabbed a disposable plastic fork from the table and smacked it into his palm. Give me your phone, he demanded. Why should I give you my phone? If you want one, go buy your own. This thing wasn't cheap. He didn't pull his hand back, so I eventually caved and handed it over. He tapped around on it for a second before tossing it back to me. Don't ever block me again. Caleb watched the whole exchange in utter awe. Man, how do you know her passcode? She won't even tell me. Call me your brother-in-law, and I'll tell you. After a year apart, Nathan had definitely grown shameless. Brother-in-law. Caleb, the little suck-up, flipped his loyalty in a heartbeat. Just as our food arrived, Nathan smirked. Sorry, Your sister won't let me tell you. I was speechless. I burst out laughing, doubling over in my chair. To be honest, it had been a long time since I'd laughed that hard over the past year. I'd spent an entire year trying to wipe this man from my memory, only for all my defenses to crumble the second I saw him again. Mid-bite, he suddenly asked, "Since when do you not eat spicy food? It breaks me out and ruins my stomach." "I gave it up ages ago," I replied with a smile. Caleb chimed in. "Yeah, she's always preaching about staying healthy. Have some pity on her, Nathan. Look, she's already starting to look old. That little punk." Food couldn't even keep his mouth shut. I shoved a massive piece of bread into Caleb's mouth. "Who are you calling old? I'm in my prime." Caleb practically burned his tongue, wincing as he mumbled around the bread. Right, you've still got it." Once we finished eating, Caleb found an excuse to ditch us. Walking side by side with Nathan, we definitely drew a lot of stares. Me in my pajamas and him in a pristine suit. It looked like a scene straight out of a cheesy romance movie, where the quirky small-town girl bumps into the elite CEO. All we were missing was a camera crew. It made me feel completely awkward. "Are you two not together anymore?" His voice broke through the crisp crunch of autumn leaves beneath our boots. It took me a second to realize who he was talking about. I nodded. "Yeah, we broke up." We had stopped in front of a decorative fountain. The moment he halted, the water jets behind him erupted into life. He really was something else. Framed by the rushing water, with his flawless face and perfect posture, he looked incredibly handsome. Then he asked, "What if I don't go abroad?" I stared at him. The water subsided just as quickly, but I forced myself to ignore his words. "What did you say?" The water was too loud. He let out a soft laugh. "Nancy, you're lying again." His fingers brushed against my ear. "Every time you lie, right here turns bright red. Can't I just say I didn't hear you?" "Fine." He stepped closer, pressing the issue. "Nancy, what if I don't go abroad?" I couldn't play dumb anymore. I shook my head. "There's no need. It's a great career move. You shouldn't throw it away." He was completely ruining all my carefully laid plans. "Nancy, I know you were lying. Before you try to deny it, I mean about what happened a year ago." He took another step toward me. "That guy you were with, he likes men. You hired him to trick me." Panic seized me, and I bolted without thinking. Suddenly, the water jet shot up again, absolutely drenching me. Spitting water out of my mouth, I cursed inwardly. This was pure karma. I suddenly flashed back to a trip we took 3 years ago. We were on a long-distance bus for over 10 hours, and I had fallen asleep, completely out of it, resting my head on his lap. When I woke up, the older woman sitting across from us told me, "Your boyfriend is so good to you, sweetheart. He stayed up the entire night, afraid to move a muscle." I remembered sleeping incredibly well that night. Even in my sleep, I felt someone drape a jacket over my shoulders. He had even used his fingers to shield my eyes from the sun, because he knew light bothered me when I slept. I woke up in a haze, burning with a fever. My body was already weak, so this felt like pure torture. My mom tried to drag me to the hospital, but I panicked. "I'm an adult. I don't need a hospital. Just give me some fever reducers." Caleb hovered nearby, looking like he wanted to say something. When my mom went to fetch the medicine, he finally asked, "What happened with you two? I leave you alone for 5 minutes, and you somehow roll into a ditch?" "I didn't roll into a ditch, you little idiot. I wasn't watching where I was going and walked right into the fountain." Caleb busted out laughing, flashing all his teeth. I glared at him. "Someone has a makeup exam tomorrow. I wonder if he's actually opened a book yet." His grin instantly vanished, and he muttered, "Low blow," before walking away. Mom came back with the pills and made me take them. I grabbed her hand. "Mom, sit with me for a bit. You have a fever. You don't need to be chatting. You need to rest and sleep." I transferred some money to her phone. "Let's sign you up for that dance class." She stared at me, bewildered. "Is the fever messing with your head? What do I need your money for? You barely make enough to support yourself." "Mom, I'm telling you, work is going great. The company just gave me a huge bonus, thousands of dollars. Take it and sign up for the dance class. We've got plenty of money. Keep your money. Just go. Don't let the things you couldn't do when you were younger become regrets when you're older." The truth was, I was terrified I wouldn't be around to take care of them as they aged. If Dad ever starts acting up, just drag him down to the community center and make him line dance with all the other old men. That'll drive him crazy. My dad would probably smack me if he heard that, but it got a laugh out of my mom. She quickly pivoted. "Since work is going so well, what about your love life?" I lowered my head, suddenly evasive. "It's fine. Invite Nathan over for dinner soon. I gave her a non-committal hum and drifted off to sleep shortly after. I dreamt of the very first time Nathan stood up for me. I was a nightmare of a child, running wild, climbing trees, acting nothing like a little girl. One day my mom finally snapped and yelled, "I'm going to sell you to someone else." I ran out of the house sobbing and ran straight into Nathan, the class president, who was eating a popsicle. He marched me right back home, grabbed my mom's arm, and started begging her. He said, "Ma'am, please don't sell Nancy. If you absolutely have to sell her, can you just sell her to me?" My mom, who had been in the middle of a bridge game with her friends, nearly jumped out of her chair in shock. I woke up from the dream and popped a piece of gum into my mouth from the nightstand. I still remembered that Nathan only had exactly $1 in his pocket that day. Thinking he could buy me for a single dollar. I chewed on the gum. It didn't taste sweet at all. Luckily, my fever broke, and I felt infinitely better. Caleb had left for campus first thing in the morning. Mom made me some soup and a few slices of toast. When I heard a knock at the door, I assumed it was my dad back early from his business trip. I yanked the door open. "Dad, what are you doing back so early?" When I actually looked, I nearly bit my own tongue. Calling him Dad clearly threw Nathan for a loop too. "What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to check on you. I'm sorry about the fountain yesterday." Checking on me is one thing, but did you really have to bring the entire grocery store? I stared at the massive, colorful haul of items stacked behind him, feeling a headache coming on. He didn't even flinch. "I wasn't sure what your parents liked, so I just grabbed a bit of everything." It literally was a bit of everything. He hadn't missed a single aisle. I pointed at a heavy cardboard box on the floor. "Who comes over to visit and brings a massive bulk box of condiments?" My mom walked out of the kitchen and stopped dead in her tracks. Staring at the mountain of groceries in the living room, she turned to me. "Have you lost your mind? Why did you buy all this?" It took her another second to register Nathan, standing there. "Oh, Nathan, don't tell me you brought all of this." "Hello, ma'am. Nancy got soaked yesterday, and I was worried she might get sick." "Well, she did get sick," Mom said, shooting me a frustrated look. "She's an adult, and she somehow still manages to fall into ponds. First Caleb says I rolled into a ditch, now my mom says I fell into a pond. The injustice was staggering. Mom, I already told you, I was standing in the fountain." "Great. Even worse. A grown woman wandering out into the freezing cold and deciding to stand in a fountain. Brilliant." I just stared at her. Having successfully achieved her goal of inviting Nathan over for dinner, my mom happily grabbed her purse and left to buy fresh groceries, leaving Nathan and me sitting on opposite ends of the couch. Nathan, doing things like this is just going to give my mom the wrong idea. "Nancy, let me try one last time." He paused thoughtfully. "I thought getting over you would be easy. But it wasn't." Those few words instantly brought tears to my eyes. I forced a smile and asked, "Do you remember that love letter I wrote you back in the day?" He nodded. I had only written 2 short lines. "I have loved you for a long time. Perhaps you didn't know." He wrote back, changing just the last few words. "I have loved you for a long time. Now you know." All our youthful romance was poured into those words. I let out a bitter laugh. But I realized later that those lines were just me talking to myself. I never expected him to turn it into an answer for both of us. Just because every word got a response didn't mean we were destined for a happy ending. He looked helplessly at me, so I just added, "Nathan, it's in the past. We don't work together." He barely spoke a word at dinner. My mom didn't even realize that the man sitting at her table was the same little boy who had begged to buy me all those years ago. She also didn't know that he was the only man I had loved for so many years. "Is the food not to your liking?" my mom asked, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "I can go whip up something else right now." "Mom, isn't this a bit of a double standard?" I complained without looking up. "If Caleb or I so much as suggest a dish is a little too salty, you threaten us with a spatula. Why does Nathan get the VIP treatment?" She shot me a glare and shoved a massive chicken leg onto my plate to shut me up. "Eat. You talk too much. If you scare off my future son-in-law, I'm packing up your things and throwing you out on the street." "Mom, littering is a crime. What if I land on the flowers?" As I was eating, before I could even reach for another bite, Nathan effortlessly placed a piece of my favorite food into my bowl. It was an old habit from when we were together, his way of spoiling me. After all this time, he hadn't forgotten. This happened a few more times until I couldn't take it anymore. "Nathan, are you trying to fatten up a pig?" He simply replied, "Eat up. You've lost weight." My mom didn't catch the underlying tension, but it made my heart skip a beat, quickly followed by a flash of annoyance. "Skinny is in right now." My mom was having none of it. Considering you wandered into a freezing fountain for fun, I think you've starved your brain of nutrients. Despite the bickering, I actually felt a rare sense of peace. I'd imagined this exact scene so many times, sometimes in daydreams, sometimes while asleep. It was nice to finally see it happen. My mom insisted I walk him out, but Nathan was worried about my health and tried to stop me. I glanced at my mom and gave in. I'll just walk you to the door. As we stepped out, a thought hit me. Wait, how did you even carry all those groceries here? The supermarket manager and his employees helped me haul them over. Right. Money can literally make people do the heavy lifting for you. Drive safe. I lingered in the doorway, unwilling to step out any further. The wind was howling, and the cold was cutting right through me. I still hadn't fully recovered. He nodded. He took a few steps away, then abruptly spun around and closed the distance between us. Before I could react, he pulled me into his arms and whispered against my ear, "Let's get back together." He never got to hear my answer. Before I could even open my mouth, Caleb's booming voice ruined the moment. "Oh my God. I didn't see anything. Carry on. I just wanted to go upstairs, but I think I'm going to go blind." His dramatic wailing and the ridiculous way he covered his eyes instantly triggered a single thought in my brain. "Caleb, how did that makeup exam go?" He practically sprinted away in a panic. I gently pushed Nathan away. "You should get going. It looks like it's going to snow." I watched him walk away. I thought about the man who used to wait for me at the bus stop after work, pulling a piping hot coffee out of his coat pocket to hand to me. He used to blow dry my hair, kneel to tie my shoes, and even finish the food I couldn't eat. Whenever we argued, he was always the one to coax a smile out of me and apologize first. When we walked together, he always held my hand, and no matter how swamped he was with work, he always found time to make me feel cherished. He had been so deeply intertwined with my life that we were practically inseparable. And I was the one who threw a man like that away. I started sobbing uncontrollably, which Caleb immediately noticed. All of his usual obnoxious bravado vanished. He pulled me into a hug. All right, don't cry. It's just a guy." It hit me then that the little kid I'd been calling a brat for years was now a full head taller than me. I let out a teary laugh and wiped my eyes. "What are you talking about? I'm just in a bad mood." He grabbed my hand and led me upstairs. What happens when my sister is in a bad mood? She beats me up. Let me tell you, every time you beat me up, you always end up laughing. I didn't want to admit we were related. He was such a giant idiot. I suddenly pulled my hand free and patted him on the back. "Caleb, let me tell you something." Seeing how serious I looked, he instantly mirrored my expression. "Did he do something to you? I can go beat him up for you. I mean, I probably can't take him in a fair fight, but I can call in some backup." Still not taking things seriously. "Stop joking around." I snapped out of frustration. "Listen to me. You need to start taking your studies seriously. Mom and Dad are going to have to rely on you in the future." He stopped dead in his tracks. "Nancy, I think it makes way more sense for them to rely on you." I whacked him on the back. "You're the son. Who else are they going to rely on? You're always talking about getting me married off. If I'm married and gone, how are they going to depend on me?" He looked genuinely bummed out. "Just marry a local guy and buy a house near us. Problem solved." I pinched his ear hard. "Why don't I just marry the neighbor while I'm at it?" The moment the words left my mouth, the older man next door opened his front door, his bald head gleaming under the porch light, and grinned at us. "You two have such a wonderful sibling bond." My condition worsened with the first heavy snowfall of the year. I checked into the hospital. I was terrified that my doctor was lying to me, but he swore I would easily make it to the 2-year mark. I still had so much unfinished business. I really didn't want to die yet. I used a work trip as an excuse to slip away and start chemotherapy on my own. I even wired some money to my dad, telling him work was going great and that he shouldn't hesitate to treat himself to something nice. Lying alone in my hospital bed, I scrolled through the happy updates my family was sharing in our group chat. Nathan called me relentlessly. I only picked up once when I was fully lucid. I was still racking my brain trying to come up with details for my fake business trip when he cut me off. "Nancy, I'm only going to ask you this once. What the fuck hospital are you in?" Thank God my chemo session was over. Watching Nathan rush into the room, I immediately went into damage control. "It's just a tumor, completely benign. I sneaked in to get it removed so Mom wouldn't worry. Please don't tell her. Show me your medical charts." "No." I dug my heels in. "I told you it's benign. I'm fine." "Nancy, let me get another doctor to look at you," he coaxed gently. I shook my head, realizing I had no choice but to confess. "There's no point. I'm not going to get better. It's lung cancer." Have you ever heard of small cell lung cancer? It's the worst kind. Nathan, why haven't you left yet? Nathan stood outside the hospital and smoked for a long, long time. And I stood by the window and watched him for just as long. When I was 17, I wanted to see the ocean, but I didn't have the money. When I was 20, I wanted to see the ocean, but I still didn't have the money. When I was 25, I wanted to see the ocean, but I didn't have the time. This year, at 27, I wanted to see the ocean. And this gentleman said to me, "Since you hate the cold so much, I'll take you somewhere warm to see the ocean." I tried to say no, but he threatened to tell my parents everything if I refused. I caved. Well, fine. It wasn't just me caving. I think I really just wanted to look at the ocean with him. I told my parents I was taking a vacation to Key West, Florida with Nathan. My dad happily slipped me some cash. "If you run short, let me know. Have a wonderful time." My mom laughed until she cried. My daughter is finally doing something right. Caleb teased me relentlessly. Oh man, Nathan is clearly blind. But hey, we finally got rid of the biggest problem in this family, so congratulations to us all. The whole family practically shoved me out the door. The moment the plane landed, the temperature change hit me like a wall. I changed into a new sundress Nathan had bought for me, and when I walked out, his eyes practically lit up. "You're staring. Am I really that pretty?" "You are," he breathed out. "You always find a way to draw me in." "And when am I the most attractive to you?" I asked, genuinely curious. He looked at me, pretending to think deeply for a few seconds. "In bed." Bastard. My new swimsuit was absolutely adorable. Except Nathan frowned the second he saw it, clearly annoyed. "There's barely any fabric there. You're not wearing this again." "You have a lot of nerve saying that to me," I countered, looking him up and down. "Every woman on this beach is going to be staring at you." I went to grab us some drinks, and when I came back, I caught a gorgeous woman chatting him up. I walked up quietly, just in time to hear him point in my direction. "I told you I have a girlfriend." "Look, there she is." "So she's just a girlfriend." The woman purposefully pushed her rather impressive chest forward. "And she's not even as pretty as me. Why don't you give me a try?" His tone instantly hardened. "I told you, she is my only girlfriend. She's the only one for me, for the rest of my life." I'd be lying if I said I wasn't moved. Later that night, lying in his arms, I finally asked, "How did you figure out I was sick?" He pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I'm so sorry it took me so long. Don't change the subject." "How did you know?" That was the very first time I saw him cry. He told me that when he saw me again, he noticed so many little things were off. His sharp intuition meant I had no place to hide. "Help me keep this from my parents. I've only got a year left, and I just want them to have a little more time before they have to be completely crushed." It was a shame I couldn't fool Nathan. Now he was going to suffer right alongside me. He offered a sad smile. "All right. But for a favor this big, you have to beg." "Please, Nathan, I'm begging you." I had no pride left to protect. "I have one condition," he said, his voice entirely serious. "What is it?" "Marry me." Nathan wasn't just throwing the idea out there. Even while we were still in Key West, he was already calling people to figure out the legal paperwork for getting married, fully intending to get the ball rolling the second we got home. It completely caught me off guard. "Isn't this moving a little fast?" "We've been together for 3 years, he shot back annoyed. "I literally know exactly where the mole on your ass is. Does this still feel fast?" "Oh my God, you cannot say things like that out loud." I lunged at him and slapped my hand over his mouth. He stuck his tongue out and dragged it across my palm. It felt burning hot, and I yanked my hand away immediately. "Absolute bastard. But we've been broken up for a year. You can't just get married on a whim. Our families haven't even officially met. Even if my parents love you, what about yours?" How could his parents ever be okay with him marrying a woman with a death sentence? "Don't worry about them," he said calmly. "I'll take you to meet them as soon as we're back. They're going to love you." True to his word, the moment the trip ended, he marched me straight over to his parents' house. His parents didn't seem bothered in the slightest. In fact, they were bustling around, excitedly offering to buy me everything under the sun for the wedding. I waited until Nathan stepped out of the room, then gently grabbed his mother's hand. "Ma'am, I can't lie to you. I have cancer, and I don't have much time left. You shouldn't let him do this out of some misguided sense of duty. Marrying me is going to destroy him." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Nancy, I know what a wonderful girl you are. And as his mother, no, I don't want him marrying you. But a year ago, when you two broke up, he was so sick with grief he didn't leave his bed for a month. This time, he told us that if we said no, he would just die with you." Before I could even process what she just said, I saw Nathan standing in the doorway, a stormy look on his face. I had no idea how much he'd heard, but a wave of guilt hit me. He walked right up to me. "Nancy, you don't want to marry me?" I nodded slowly. "Is that an option?" "No. I told you before, even in death, you belong to me." The visit ended on a terrible note. I was originally supposed to stay the night at his place, but I threw a fit and insisted on going home. Just as I raised my hand to unlock the front door, I heard Caleb sobbing inside. "Mom, Dad, I can't fake it anymore." Hearing a grown man cry like that was absolutely gut-wrenching. "She's sick. I found her medical files. She has cancer. What are we supposed to do? She's still so young." My parents must have been entirely paralyzed by shock. I heard the loud smack of my mom hitting his back, followed immediately by her breaking down into tears. "You idiot, why didn't you tell us sooner? She must be in so much pain." Seconds later, my dad started crying too. I never walked through the door. I turned around and walked back down to the street, where Nathan was still standing by his car. He hurriedly stubbed out his cigarette and looked at me. "Why didn't you go in?" I ran to him and threw my arms around his waist. "I'm so sorry I got sick. I always loved painting. Before I got sick, I even signed up for an illustration class. The instructor told me I had a lot of talent, though I half suspected she was just trying to make the older student feel better. Once I got my diagnosis, I went and unenrolled. When I explained why, the instructor insisted on refunding my tuition for the entire year. If life has to be full of regrets, why did this one have to sting so much? I would have honestly preferred if she just said, "You're terrible at this, it's not for you," rather than, "You have a gift, what a shame." I took out my pen and started writing a journal for Nathan, filling the margins with illustrations. My drawings of him were everywhere. Nathan sitting on a cloud like some ancient god. Nathan in a sharp suit, looking like the ultimate corporate elite. Nathan, with a giant bobblehead looking like a little kid, and occasionally, Nathan not wearing very much at all. Hee hee. I wasn't sure if he'd find it funny, but it certainly cracked me up. People probably wouldn't believe it, but back in the day, I was the delinquent skipping class to watch people play arcade games, and he was the hyper-serious class president dragging me back by the collar. Since I couldn't outmuscle him, I used to yell, "Nathan, I'm going to make you mine one day." And eventually I really did. Just not exactly the way I'd originally planned. Knowing my parents had found out about my cancer, I knew they would never touch the money I'd sent them. So, I decided to start saving it up. If the pain became completely unbearable, I could stop the chemotherapy and just leave the money to them. After all, Caleb still needed to get married and have kids. Though, doing the math, I definitely wasn't going to live to see my future sister-in-law. And it was his own fault for being such a disappointment. He was already in college and still didn't have a girlfriend. He clearly didn't inherit my skills in that department. Nathan and I met in elementary school. He transferred away in middle school, but miraculously we ended up at the same college. The very first day I saw him on campus, my eyes practically lit up, and I made a vow right then and there. A man the handsome belongs with me. The absolute jerk completely milked it. He loved the attention, loved me chasing him around, and catering to his every whim. He lived like a king for quite a while. It wasn't until we got into a huge fight and I told him to stay away from me that he snapped and yelled, "You're the wife I bought with my own money." That was the exact moment the super serious, pint-sized Nathan from my memory finally merged with the tall, handsome guy standing in front of me. I was livid and screamed at him to get out. Bought me with his own money? He had exactly $1 in his pocket that day, and he didn't even actually hand it over. He just pretended he didn't hear me, grabbed the hem of his shirt, and pulled it over his head, aggressively declaring, "I'm taking a shower." Right. Because he knew exactly what his abs did to me. I told my family I was using all the accrued vacation time from my overtime hours to take a 2-week break. None of them called my bluff. Caleb was on winter break, so he spent every day at home goofing off with me. Honestly, it must have been exhausting for him. He was terrible at pretending everything was normal. Yet, he kept up the act as hard as he could. I decided to exploit the situation a little bit. I sent him across town to the east side for a specific sandwich, then to the north side for a milkshake, and then to the south side for a burrito. After a few rounds of this, he finally snapped at me. Honestly, it was a relief. Him losing his temper made the act much more convincing, so I wouldn't have to worry about him breaking down and taking Mom with him. Mom threw herself into studying elaborate new recipes. Dad spent hours staring blankly at his phone before finally working up the courage to ask softly, "Nancy, what if we all took a family vacation?" By that evening, my entire family, plus Nathan, who stubbornly invited himself along, touched down in New Orleans. I dragged Nathan into the frame to take a huge family photo on the historic streets of the French Quarter. Smile, I yelled at the top of my lungs. We grabbed a table at a local restaurant. I was wrestling with a rock-hard baguette, trying to tear off a piece to dip in my soup, complaining loudly, "Why is this so difficult?" "Allow me, my lady. I'll handle this," Nathan said without missing a beat. Always happy to be lazy, I shoved the bowl toward him. Nathan, who spent his entire life being painfully serious in every situation not involving a bed, suddenly pushed his chair back and stood up. At the top of his lungs, he announced to the crowded restaurant, "Excuse me, everyone. I'm just so happy I have to say it. I'm going to marry my girlfriend." The entire room erupted into applause and cheers. My face flushed bright red. My dad turned his head away. My mom's eyes immediately filled with tears. Caleb was already wiping his eyes. "Congratulations," someone yelled. "You two are perfect for each other," called another. "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." Trying to accommodate my fragile health, they structured our itinerary in the most illogical way possible. We never left the hotel before noon. As a result, I woke up early every day, squatted next to each of their beds, and relentlessly nagged them to get up, telling them they couldn't waste the day and we had to go play. Caleb completely ignored me, rolling over in his sleep. I finally had to kick him in the ass to get him out of bed. That evening, we walked down the vibrant Royal Street. Nathan asked if I wanted to try out one of the vintage costume shops, and I eagerly agreed. My parents and Caleb instantly wanted in on the fun. We rented massive, antebellum-style ball gowns and suits. After getting my makeup done, I grinned wildly at myself in the mirror. I actually look amazing. Caleb looked at me with pure disgust. "You really have no shame. I'm obviously the better-looking one." "Nope. You're definitely not as handsome as Nathan." "Mom, she's picking on me." He instantly ran off to complain to our parents. Nancy just called me ugly. Nathan and I trailed behind them. He asked me how I was feeling. I was in a fantastic mood and feeling pretty good physically, so I smiled and told him I felt great. But then I looked up and saw what was waiting for us. Warm, golden lights were strung up across wrought iron arches. The cobblestones were carpeted with rose petals. Street musicians were playing a slow, romantic melody, and my family was standing right there waiting. A sudden wave of panic washed over me. But Nathan took my hand and led me down the rose-covered path to the very center. With a growing crowd forming around us, he dropped to one knee and looked up at me. "Nancy, will you marry me?" A huge part of me wanted to say no, but an equally huge part of me couldn't bear to. In the end, I nodded. My entire family broke down sobbing. Everyone in the crowd thought they were tears of joy. I was the only one who knew it was the terror of death. My health tanked the moment we got back from New Orleans. It hit me incredibly fast and hard. I was back in the hospital in no time. Strangely, the flare-up actually gave me a weird sense of relief, because Nathan had been pushing to finalize the marriage paperwork the second we returned, and this successfully derailed his plans. With the secret out, my parents moved into the hospital room to take care of me. My mom was peeling an apple by my bed. "You silly girl. How could you keep something this massive from us? Seeing you go to work every day with a smile on your face, all I thought about was cooking you good food to keep your strength up. And then Caleb told us he found your chart. Mom, if you keep peeling it like that, I'm only going to have the core left to eat." I quickly cut her off, terrified she was going to start crying again. "Brat," she snapped, shoving the mangled apple into my hand. "Eat it or don't. See if I care." A few minutes later, my oncologist, Dr. Harmon, walked in just as my mom was heading out to grab lunch. I immediately complained. "Dr. Harmon, you lied to me, didn't you? There's no way I'm making it to 2 years." Even with a surgical mask on, his legendary bluntness shone through. "Quiet. Who is the doctor here, you or me?" "You are, obviously. Then if I say you can make it, you can make it." He started outlining a new direction for my treatment. "No more exhausting yourself." Just as he turned to leave, I quietly asked, "Dr. Harmon, what if I just stop treatment?" He stopped in the doorway. "You're so young. Don't you want to live?" I did. I really did. But it hurt so much. During rounds the next morning, Dr. Harmon stared at my gleaming bald head for a long time without saying a word. "Where is your hair?" I rubbed my bare scalp, trying to look completely casual. I shaved it. It was falling out in patches anyway, and I didn't want people thinking I had alopecia at my age. I actually did a pretty good job, right? Turns out my scalp is incredibly pale. "You can wear a wig or a hat," he suggested gently. I pointed up at the ceiling vent. "The central heating in here is blasting. I don't want to get a heat rash." Honestly, it didn't even look that bad. I just had to own it. And I truly did want to cooperate with the treatment now. Because I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. The side effects of the chemo were brutal. I was rapidly losing weight, turning into skin and bones. I figured I had to look absolutely hideous by now, judging by the way people involuntarily flinched whenever they first saw me. When your existence is reduced to lying in a hospital bed staring at the ceiling, you get really good at reading micro-expressions. One day, the nurse finally told me I was clear to go for a walk. Thank God. I was going out of my mind with boredom. I immediately threw my coat on and headed straight out the front doors of the hospital. There were always a few food carts parked right by the entrance. I was busy mentally calculating how much junk food I could physically carry back to my room when I suddenly ran into my middle school art teacher. The little old man looked surprisingly spry and was just getting ready to leave. His memory was sharp as a tack. He recognized me immediately as his old class representative. I was wearing a heavy winter coat over my hospital gown. He was wearing a thick, puffy winter jacket over his hospital gown. He only asked me 2 questions. Do you still love to read? I do. Are you still painting? I am. Looking completely satisfied, he grabbed his coffee and bagel and walked away. See? The ultimate goal of life is just to find happiness. Naturally, the second I got back to the floor, my nurse caught me. She looked ready to drag me by the ear. I told you to take a walk in the halls. You wandered completely off hospital grounds. We were looking everywhere for you. I immediately launched into desperate apologies. After that, whenever I got bored, I'd sneak down to the old man's room to chat. You'd be surprised how much 2 cancer patients have in common. He lamented that it was a tragedy I was so young. And I lamented that it was a tragedy he had to suffer at his age. He was always smiling. I could usually hear his booming laugh before I even reached his door. But I never once saw anyone come to visit him. I knew he had a son and a daughter, which made the questions catching in my throat too painful to ask. Whenever I smuggled him some food, he would stare at it silently for a long time, then wolf it down and immediately go back to making jokes and telling wild stories. One day, I brought him a bowl of my mom's handmade noodles, knowing he'd been craving them. But his hospital room was completely empty. I was about to find a nurse to ask where he was when I heard people screaming out in the hall. Someone jumped from the roof. Pure panic gripped my chest. I didn't even put the bowl down. I looked out the window down to the ground below. A small, frail figure was lying broken in the grass. I couldn't see the details clearly, but the tears came instantly, pouring down my face in sheets. The little old man had left so abruptly. He didn't even get to eat his hot meal. The family members who had never bothered to show up suddenly materialized. His son was loudly threatening to sue the hospital for $1 million. But the old man had left a note. He explicitly stated that the agony of the illness, combined with the complete abandonment by his children, drove him to end his life. He demanded that the hospital not be held responsible in any way. Before he jumped, he had even gone down and paid off his remaining medical bills in full. I stared at the note. The handwriting was bold, elegant, and full of life. Why do people have to be such cowards? I cried until I had absolutely nothing left. Collapsed against Nathan's chest, I weakly whispered, "Living is just too hard, isn't it?" He held all my weight, supporting me entirely, and replied softly, "It is incredibly hard. But promise me you'll fight to stay alive anyway. Please." I gave a small nod like a good girl. I didn't want to break my promise either. Dr. Harmon truly wasn't a liar. I managed to scrape together 3 more happy months. It felt like things were finally starting to look up. I still flat out refused to go to City Hall with Nathan. But a deep intuition told me this was going to be my last New Year's. On Christmas, Nathan refused to leave my house. I practically dragged him outside to buy fireworks. He guarded me fiercely, terrified I was going to slip on the icy pavement. I looked at him and laughed. Do you remember shoveling snow in college? Freshman year, the dean made all the freshmen do it. When we became sophomores, he changed the rule to sophomores shovel the snow. Nathan laughed loudly, his hand gripping mine. It felt incredibly warm. We suddenly crossed paths with a woman walking the other way. Her eyes instantly locked onto Nathan. I immediately tried to pull my hand free, but Nathan snatched it right back. Perfect timing. Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Nancy. I could tell immediately she was trouble, but I had never planned on hoarding Nathan all to myself anyway. I desperately wanted to ask what the hell he was thinking, but his rigid posture completely shut me down. Is it because of her? The woman's tone was incredibly aggressive. Yes and no. Nathan pulled me securely against his side. It's always been her. It's never been anyone else. Even when she's about to die? Wow. "Hey lady, if you want to steal my man, can we leave the terminal illness out of it?" That was incredibly hurtful. Nathan lost his temper instantly, practically screaming at the woman to get the hell out of his face. I tugged on his arm to keep walking toward the fireworks stand. He was silent for a long time before asking, "Why didn't you ask me who she was?" "Does it matter?" I was a dying woman. I didn't have the energy to care about the details. "She works for a partner company we do business with. We met during a project." He stopped walking and carefully adjusted my scarf, making sure my neck was protected from the wind. "She made her interest obvious, but I swear I kept things completely professional." Since when is keeping things completely professional equivalent to screaming at someone in the street? To be honest, a part of me felt that him moving on and finding a new life wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I didn't say anything back to him. We never ended up getting those fireworks. The guy who usually sold them had closed up early, probably to go celebrate the holiday himself. It was entirely Caleb's fault. How do you forget to buy fireworks? Completely useless. I genuinely worried if he'd be capable of looking after our parents when I was gone. When the New Year's countdown special came on TV, I was the only one in the room laughing at the jokes. I could clearly hear someone crying behind me, so I just pretended to be entirely deaf. Later that night, lying against Nathan's chest, I whispered softly, "It's been over a year since we've slept together. Now that you're finally in my bed, are you really just going to let me stare at your abs and drool? That's just cruel." When he leaned down to kiss me, I could feel his lips trembling against mine. I spent the next 2 months completely bedridden. But today, I suddenly felt incredibly clear-headed and energetic. I sat up, gathered all my banking information, wrote down all my passwords, and handed the papers to Caleb. He instantly started bawling. He was a grown man, and he still didn't know what embarrassment was. "What are you crying for?" "I want a boiled egg." Caleb frantically wiped his face and scrambled toward the kitchen to boil an egg. He was moving so fast he tripped over a chair leg and nearly face-planted. I laughed so hard I sounded like a honking goose. The boiled egg was scalding hot. Caleb dropped it into a bowl of cold water to cool it down for me. But I fished it out, stubbornly insisting on peeling it myself. Seeing my mom and dad crying openly in the room made it impossible to hold back my own tears. Tossing the scalding egg between my hands, I finally managed to get the shell off and break apart the egg white. The yolk inside was perfectly round, though the edges were a bit gray. "Little brother, you boiled this way too long." I held the yolk out, and Nathan naturally reached over and took it from my hand. "In elementary school, I hated the yolk, and you loved it. Every time my mom made me eat a boiled egg, I'd give the yolk to you. Right, egg buddy?" Sometimes he'd take it without a word, sometimes he'd complain that I was pawning off the yolk again, and sometimes he'd just smile and say it was a good thing he liked the yolk. "When I'm gone, promise me you won't stay sad for too long." "Nathan, let's play a game. I wrote a journal just for you, and it's hidden somewhere in the house. You have to find it yourself, okay?" I actively fought the urge to glance at my small wooden desk, where the notebook was wedged under one of the legs to keep it from wobbling. "Caleb, I'm leaving Mom and Dad to you." On one side stood the man I swore I'd spend forever with. On the other stood the family I promised we'd be happy together forever. "I'm so sorry. I broke my promises this lifetime. I'm going to go fight the monsters in the next world now."